So, you're a pipe smoker, and you're looking for the perfect gift for your significant other. Nice. You're a great human being. But what to get her? Flowers? Boring. Jewelry? Unoriginal. Besides, have you ever seen Blood Diamond? Come on, man. But don't worry. I know exactly what your wife wants. I know exactly what she needs. It's a candle. It's a candle. Because she wants to live in a house that doesn't smell like smoke. You're welcome. Smoking a pipe in the house is a delicate issue, especially if your wife is like mine and has the nose of a bloodhound. Well, some time ago, she came to me and told me she didn't want me smoking in the house anymore. Even though I only ever smoked in my studio, but apparently the smoke was getting up into the air vents and getting around the house. It happens, right? Well, of course I love my wife, but there comes a time in every man's life when he needs to stand up for himself and lay down the laws of the house. So, I decided to assert my male dominance. Literally, hundreds and thousands of years of caveman diplomacy came rushing to the surface. I'd let a lot of things slide over the years, but this was not going to be one of them. So, after a firm yet respectful conversation, I'd set her straight. And we both decided that I shouldn't smoke in the house anymore. Well, some time went by and everything was fine. But as always happens, the weather started to change. And eventually, I started to smoke my pipe hot just to keep my fingers warm in the garage. This was a problem, so I decided to run an experiment. I was positive that I could find a way to smoke my pipe in the house with my wife home and nobody would even notice. And by the way, if you ever run a secret experiment involving your wife, do not ever, ever, ever tell her about it. Seriously. So I have to add a quick note here. In no way at all am I advocating or condoning lying to or deceiving your spouse. Believe me, it's much better to smoke in the garage than to sleep there. Keep that in mind. Now, pipe smoke, if you don't know, isn't like cigarette smoke or even cigar smoke. And by the way, I do not smoke cigarettes at all. I never have. The good thing about pipe smoke is it doesn't really stick to your clothes the same way that other smoke does, and it really doesn't linger in the room for very long either, especially aromatic blends. So, for this experiment to be successful, here are the two main things I needed to address. One, the smoke when I was actually actively smoking the pipe, getting up into the vents and getting around the house. And two, the residual smoky smell around the room, which really wasn't that evident in the first place. So, first things first, how do you get rid of, or at least significantly reduce, the amount of smoke coming out of your pipe when you're actually smoking it? Well, this leads us to probably the most important part of the entire process, a really good air purifier. You'll definitely want to get one of those really good ionizing air filter purifiers. If you haven't seen them in action, they're actually really impressive. You can actually see them sucking in the smoke and pushing out clean, odorless air. Now, you can usually pick one of these up at a department store or online for around $100 or even less, but I decided to go all out. I ended up getting one of the best on the market, the Rabbit Air Minus A2 air purifier. And no, this isn't a sponsored video, but Rabbit Air, if you want to send any sponsorship dollars my way, I'll be more than happy to take them off your hands. These things are amazing. You actually see them in a lot of cigar bars and smoking lounges. They're actually designed to clear out a room much larger than this, full of cigar smokers. So this was definitely going to be a lot more than I needed for this studio. I don't think I need to do a full review on the Rabbit Air, but if you want to see one, let me know. In addition to the air purifier, since smoke had been getting up into the vents, naturally, I closed the vents. It got a little chilly down here, but it's a heck of a lot better than freezing your you-know-what off in the garage. And that also explains the sweaters. So get used to those. You're going to see a lot of those. Next, how would I get rid of the residual smoky smell? Well, like I said, pipe smoke isn't like cigarettes or even cigars. For the most part, it's really not going to stick to most surfaces, including your clothes. And the residual smell is really going to dissipate within a couple of days. Another great reason to smoke pipes. But even though the smell isn't nearly as bad as other types of smoke, depending on how often you smoke a pipe, it still can get a little stale once in a while. So, the first thing that I had to consider here was the general room note of the tobacco itself. Room note, if you're not aware, is the way that burning tobacco smells to other people in the room who aren't actually smoking the tobacco itself. And if you've been smoking very long at all, you know that aromatic blends tend to have a much better room note than English blends. So this was the first change that I made to affect the room's post-smoke smell. I'd only smoke aromatics throughout the duration of the experiment. Next, I would need something that wouldn't only mask the smell, but actually lift the potential odors right out of the fabrics and the carpet in this room. And for this, I actually took advice from a video created by the Spurgeon Piper. If you haven't seen his videos, they're amazing. He does really great content. But he recommended using Febreze wood around the room about once a week, just to freshen things up. However, what I did was I actually sprayed this around the room, around the carpet, on the fabric surfaces after each smoke. And I'm actually not a fan of Febreze. You know, in general, I've always thought that it just covers up one bad smell with another. I didn't like the smell. However, Febreze wood is really good. It's surprisingly good. There's just something about the woodiness that works well with aromatic smoke. This stuff isn't super easy to find. However, I did find it at a local grocery store. So it's worth every penny, and I highly recommend it. Thank you, Spurgeon Piper, for the advice. I will always have some of this on hand. I appreciate it. Next, you probably saw this coming, but candles. And candles. And candles. But like Febreze, I'm actually not much of a candle guy. I've never really had much against them, but you ever walk through the shopping mall and you walk past one of the, I'm not going to call out the brand names, but you walk past one of those candle stores in the mall and it literally burns the nostrils.
It's quite pungent.
Well, that's always been my association with them. The smells are just too powerful, they're flowery, they're just not what you're going for. They tend to just, the smells just tend to pile up over time. But really, you know, if you look hard enough, you can find some candles that aren't bad. In fact, they'll not only cover up the smell, they'll actually complement it in a lot of ways. Right here, I have smoked sandalwood, which is, it's actually really good. I recommend anything with sandalwood. That tends to do really well with smoke. Here's another one that I got. It is tobacco cedar. Now, I think the ones that say tobacco or leather on them were created by people who've never actually smelled tobacco or leather. It smells nothing like it. It's not a bad smell, but it's not flowery. So it's good. It does tend to actually complement a little bit of that smoky smell as well. So candles, you definitely want one of those in the room. Okay, so now I had everything in place to begin the experiment. And remember, the point of this experiment was to be able to smoke a pipe in the house with my wife home and nobody would notice. And you know what? Against all odds, it actually worked. I literally smoked at least one pipe every single day for 2 months before eventually coming clean and telling my wife what happened. So, towards the end of the 2 months, she was in my studio and we were talking, and she mentioned she liked the smell of the candle that I'd been burning earlier that day. And I asked her if the candle smelled weird or bad in any way, and she said no, she actually really liked it. That's when I told her that I'd smoked a pipe earlier that morning and had done so every single day for the last 2 months. Now look, I'm not dumb enough to tell you how the rest of this conversation went. But needless to say, in general, the experiment was a success. My beautiful, kind, understanding, generous wife with the amazing right hook had no idea that I'd been smoking a pipe every single day in the house for an extended period of time, even while she was sitting in that same room just hours after the fact. So, where do we stand now? Well, we're still married. That's a good thing. And we basically have a don't ask, don't tell understanding when it comes to smoking a pipe in the house. But what about you? Does your significant other have a problem with you smoking a pipe in the house? And if so, what are some things that you've done to make things easier on them and yourself? Also, let me know if there's anything I could have done better or differently with this experiment. Also, don't tell my wife I called it an experiment. Seriously. I did this for purely scientific purposes. So if anybody in your house has a real problem with you smoking a pipe, don't do it in the house. It's not worth it.
It's science.
So give a hoot. Don't pollute your marriage with lies. It's not worth it.
Ah! Knights of Columbus, that hurts!